I still remember the sound of the garage door closing behind me. That deep mechanical rumble felt like it sealed away everything I'd known. My house, my marriage, the last 15 years of my life. Gone. My name's Carmen. I'm 38. 2 months ago, I walked out of a nightmare with my 10-year-old son Evan and a suitcase that barely held enough for a weekend, let alone a new beginning. My husband, ex-husband, I guess, had been cheating on me with my best friend for over a year. The worst part? Everyone seemed to know but me. I'd been staying home, working part-time while raising Evan, trusting that we were building a future. Turns out he was building something all right. A new life with her. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He just said, "We've grown apart. Don't make this harder than it has to be." So I left. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I packed Evan's clothes, his sketchbook, his stuffed turtle, and walked out. No plan, no job lined up. Just one phone call. "Derek, it's me," I said, standing in the driveway with my son's hand in mine. I don't know where else to go. Derek is my younger brother. We hadn't been close in recent years, not since he moved to another state and started his own business. But when we were kids, he was my best friend. I protected him from bullies. He snuck cookies into my backpack. We had history. "Of course," he said. "Come home." And just like that, we did. He lived in a nice 2-story home about 40 minutes outside of Cincinnati. Quiet neighborhood, good schools. He helped carry our bags in, showed Evan to a guest room with superhero sheets already on the bed, and made us grilled cheese and soup that night like we were kids again. I cried in the shower that night. From exhaustion, from grief, but mostly from relief. Maybe I'd landed somewhere safe. For the first week, things felt almost normal. Derek worked during the day, Evan started at his new school, and I applied for jobs anywhere that would have me. I cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, tried not to feel like an intruder. One night, I offered Derek some cash for groceries, just a little from my savings. He laughed. "Come on, Carm, you think I'm gonna charge my own sister rent? Please." But slowly, little things started to shift. He began asking where I was applying, then which companies, then what pay. He started dropping comments like, "You know Evan needs stability right now. Moving around isn't ideal." Once I came home from a part-time interview to find Evan playing video games, ones I'd specifically asked him not to play, and Derek just shrugged. "He's old enough. Loosen up a bit." I tried to shake it off. We were living under his roof. Maybe I was just sensitive. But the moment I really felt my stomach twist came late one afternoon. I was organizing some files in the guest room closet when I knocked over a stack of mail Derek had left tucked inside a cardboard box. One of the envelopes caught my eye. It had a spreadsheet printed on the front, hand-marked in red ink. My name was at the top. Beneath it, Evans. And then I saw it. C plus E equals cushion? I stared at it for a long time. Carmen, Evan, cushion. Was that how he saw us? A buffer? A plan? An asset? I didn't even hear Evan come into the room until he tugged my sleeve. "Uncle D said we're lucky he lets us stay here," he said casually. "He said you'd never afford a place on your own." I looked down at my son, his innocent face, and something inside me snapped. Quietly, but completely. I smiled and hugged him close. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to stay. Not one more day longer than I had to, because I'd escaped one kind of betrayal, only to walk straight into another. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid there beside Evan, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing while my mind raced. I kept thinking about that paper. C plus E equals cushion? And how Derek had smiled so warmly when he welcomed us in. I wanted to believe he meant well, that he was just clumsy with words or bad at budgeting. But then I replayed everything. How quickly he started making decisions for me, how Evan was suddenly closer to him than me, how I felt smaller every time I opened my mouth. And it hit me. I hadn't escaped manipulation. I just traded one flavor for another. The next morning, I put on my usual smile, packed Evan's lunch, and took him to school. When I came home, Derek was already in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was any other day. "You're quiet today," he said. "Didn't sleep much," I replied. He nodded and glanced at his phone. "Hey, random idea. My buddy Keith owns a contracting business. They're looking for admin help. Want me to call him?" I hesitated. "Actually, I've got a few leads already." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Oh, okay. I just figured, with how long you've been looking." It hadn't even been 3 weeks. Later that afternoon, I got a call from one of the libraries I'd applied to. They wanted me for a second interview. I was thrilled. Nervous, but hopeful. When I told Derek over dinner, his reaction was lukewarm. "Huh, a library? I mean, are you sure that's going to cover everything? I thought you were looking for something with real growth potential." Real growth potential. Like this was a stock portfolio. I looked across the table at Evan. He was stirring his spaghetti, silent, eyes down. The following week, things escalated. I came home one afternoon to find a woman sitting on the couch. Blonde, mid-30s, expensive handbag. She stood up when I walked in. "Hi, you must be Carmen. I'm Andrea. I'm Derek's, friend." Derek emerged from the kitchen, grinning. "Hey, sorry, forgot to mention, Andrea's staying over tonight." He said it like it was his house, which technically it was. But still. I nodded politely, forced a smile, and went straight to my room. As I closed the door, I heard Andrea laugh and say, "She's so shy." That night, I found Evan sleeping in Derek's room. He said it was okay, since the guest room is next to Andrea's. Evan whispered, confused. He said I shouldn't bother her. I sat in the hallway after Evan fell asleep, shaking with something I couldn't name yet. Rage, maybe. Humiliation. Helplessness. I knew what I had to do. I had to get us out. But moving costs money. First and last month's rent. Deposits. Furniture. I had maybe $1,200 to my name after everything with the divorce. I started quietly researching shelters, community resources, even churches that offered assistance. I swallowed my pride and emailed my former boss to see if anything was open at my old job. But what happened next knocked the air out of me. 2 days later, I got a notification from my bank. A transfer had been made. $800 withdrawn from the joint savings account that had remained untouched since the divorce. It was gone. I called the bank in a panic, and they told me the name on the withdrawal. Derek. Apparently, months earlier, I had added him temporarily to help me cover an emergency dentist bill for Evan. I'd forgotten to remove him. I felt sick. That night, I confronted him. "You took my money." Derek didn't even blink. "I borrowed it. I was short on something. I figured you wouldn't mind." "That wasn't yours to touch. You're living here rent-free, feeding your kid on my groceries. I figured it evened out." Evened out. Like my dignity, my trust, my son's sense of security were all just part of some twisted ledger. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Don't touch anything of mine ever again." He scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." But I'd already made up my mind. I waited until he left the house the next day. I pulled out my documents, opened my laptop, and started calling every number on the list I'd made. But it wasn't until I opened a drawer in his office looking for the printer cable that I found it. A life insurance policy application, with my name forged as the beneficiary, backdated, signed, witnessed, and the policy was already approved. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about control. This was about something much, much darker. The moment I saw my forged signature on that life insurance policy, I swear my heart stopped. It wasn't just a document. It was a threat in disguise. My name was listed as deceased, and Derek, as the sole beneficiary, was now sitting on a plan worth $250,000 if I were to suddenly pass away. My blood ran cold. I snapped photos of everything, every page, every forged line, and emailed them to myself. I didn't know what he was planning, or if it was just some sick hypothetical move in his twisted little power game. But I knew one thing. We were getting out. Fast. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in the living room in the dark, knees pulled to my chest, watching the hallway like a hawk. Every creak, every shift in the walls made me flinch. Evan was asleep upstairs. Safe. For now. The next morning, I dropped him at school like usual and called Marcus, the only attorney I still trusted, who'd handled my custody paperwork after the divorce. I sent him the photos, told him everything. "Carmen," he said after a long pause, "this isn't just financial abuse anymore. This might be criminal fraud, depending how far he's gone." I asked him what I should do. "Leave. Today if you can. Go to a hotel. Don't tell him where. I'll handle the legal stuff." That was all I needed to hear. I picked Evan up early from school with some excuse about a family emergency, drove to a cheap but clean motel an hour away, and paid cash for 3 nights. I told Evan we were going on a mini-adventure. He smiled, but I could tell he knew something was off. That night, I checked my email again. Marcus had confirmed. The policy was active, and worse, Derek had listed his address as my residence. He had legally created the illusion that we lived together as a couple. I felt sick. Was this some long con? Had he taken us in just to spin some insurance scam using my name? Or was it just about control, and now punishment? I started going through my things, making a list of everything I might have left behind at the house. I knew I couldn't go back alone. The next morning, I got a text from Derek. "Where are you? Evan missed breakfast. This is unacceptable, Carmen." "No. Are you okay?" "No, I'm worried. Just unacceptable." I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the bank, removed the rest of my funds from our joint emergency account. Yes, he was still listed, and closed it. I canceled the power of attorney form I'd stupidly signed during my lowest moment. I was done playing houseguest in a game I never agreed to, but nothing prepared me for what came next. That night, Evan was brushing his teeth in the motel bathroom while I laid out clean clothes for the next day. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. It was a photo. Of me. Taken from across a parking lot. That day, wearing the same hoodie, standing outside the bank. I stared at it. My breath caught. Another message followed. "You're making a mistake. You belong here. With us." With us? I felt the blood drain from my face. I checked the peephole, then the window. No one was there. I called Marcus immediately. He said, "I'll file a protection order first thing in the morning, and Carmen, don't go anywhere alone." I turned to Evan, still drying his hands with a towel, innocent, clueless. I forced a smile, trying not to shake. But inside, I was unraveling. The next day, I got a call from Evan's school. "Hi, Ms. Reyes. We just wanted to confirm. Did you authorize Derek Hale to pick up Evan this afternoon? He arrived early and said you approved it." My heart stopped. I dropped my phone, grabbed my keys, screamed at the front desk to watch our stuff. And as I raced down the freeway, hands trembling on the wheel, one thought ran through my mind. He wasn't just after me. He wanted my son. By the time I got to Evan's school that day, I was running on fumes and rage. I parked crooked, left the car door open, and sprinted across the lot. My shoes barely hit the pavement. Every step was a prayer. Please, please don't let me be too late. The receptionist saw me through the glass and buzzed me in fast. "Ms. Reyes," she said, "we're so sorry, but Mr. Hale already left. He showed ID, said you were stuck in traffic." Mr. Hale. That's how he introduced himself. Like we were married. I could barely speak. I demanded the school pull security footage, called the police, then called Marcus. He was already filing the protective order and told me to head straight to the nearest precinct to report attempted custodial interference. I was shaking so badly I had to sit down in the office, holding my head in my hands while the vice principal poured me water. But 10 minutes later, the twist came. Evan walked through the front doors, alone. "Mom?" he called, confused. "Where'd you go?" My legs nearly gave out. I grabbed him, hugged him so hard he wheezed. Turns out Derek hadn't left with him. Evan had been taken to the library for a special reading program and was never in the main pickup loop. The school had made a mistake. Derek tried, but failed. That was his last attempt. And it was mine too. Something broke in me that day. Not like before, where I fell apart and tried to stitch myself back together. This time it was cleaner. Colder. I'd had enough of being scared. I went quiet for 48 hours. No more texts, no reactions. I didn't post a thing online. I blocked his number. I stayed in a friend's guest room with Evan and didn't tell a soul where we were. Meanwhile, Marcus and I worked. We sent the forged insurance policy straight to Derek's provider and initiated an investigation. I filed an affidavit outlining the forgery with my ID, timestamps, and proof I was in a different state the day he claimed I signed it. The company responded within days. The policy was revoked, permanently. Then came the visit from a detective, confirming the file had been referred to the state's fraud unit. That wasn't the revenge yet. That was just the groundwork. Next, I started quietly interviewing with local firms, applied for subsidized housing, and met with a financial counselor Marcus connected me with. Within 2 weeks, I landed a remote job in data entry. Not glamorous, but enough to get us started. And then I made one final move. I gathered every message Derek had ever sent me. Texts, voicemails, even the ones from the burner number. Screenshots, audio files, timeline charts, all of it. And I gave it to someone who would actually care. His ex-wife. Yeah. Derek had a sealed custody arrangement with his ex, Gina, for their daughter. He'd always said she was unstable and vindictive, which I used to believe. But it turned out Gina had spent years in court trying to prove Derek was manipulative and emotionally unsafe. He had full custody because he had the money for better lawyers. Not anymore. Because the day Gina got that folder, she reopened her case, with Marcus helping her pro bono. I didn't even need to testify. Derek had built his own noose. I didn't tell Evan any of it. Just that we were starting fresh. A new apartment, a new job. But 2 weeks after we moved in, a package arrived at our door. No return address. Inside, a typed note. One sentence. "I hope you're proud of what you've done." And beneath it, a photo of me tucking Evan into bed. Taken through our apartment window. He knew where we were. He had followed us again. The photo changed everything. I stared at it for a long time, hands shaking, my chest tight like something was pressing down hard. There was no note of apology, no remorse. Just that one chilling image. Me, tucking Evan in, soft light spilling from the bedroom window. And that sentence. "I hope you're proud of what you've done." It wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder. He still thought he had power, but he didn't know I'd already taken that from him. I called Marcus, sent him the photo. Then I filed a police report for stalking and violation of a protection order. The detective I'd worked with before took it seriously, especially since Derek had crossed state lines to take that photo. Within 24 hours, a warrant was issued. Within 72, Derek was in custody. But that's not the part that felt like justice. Not yet. The justice came in layers. Gina, his ex-wife, used the stalking incident as evidence of escalating behavior. Her case had already been reopened with Marcus's help, but this sealed it. She was granted emergency custody of their daughter. Derek lost all visitation rights pending investigation. Then the fraud charges hit. The insurance company moved fast once they confirmed the forgery and the backdating. Combined with the documents I'd submitted and his emails trying to manipulate me, they referred the case to the district attorney. Charges insurance fraud, identity theft, and intent to defraud a family member. It was more than a slap on the wrist. Derek took a plea deal. 2 years probation, mandatory financial restitution, and his professional licenses. All revoked. the cherry on top. His company, the one he'd bragged about every holiday dinner, dropped him publicly, citing moral breach of fiduciary ethics. His name was stripped from the company site within hours. Clients pulled out. His reputation, the thing he prized most, burned to the ground. And I never lifted a finger in anger. I just told the truth. But the closure didn't come from courts or consequences. It came the night Evan asked me, "Mom, are we safe now?" And for the first time in months, I could look him in the eye and say, "Yes, we really are." We've since moved to a new place. Evan's room has glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and a little bookshelf he helped build. Some nights we still leave the light on, just in case. But the fears faded into something else. Caution, not panic. I still keep the envelope with Derek's photo. Not because I'm afraid anymore, but because I need to remember how far we've come. What it took to get free. He didn't break me. He just showed me exactly what I needed to rebuild. Without him. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the people who say, "I'm just trying to help," are really trying to trap you. And the most dangerous cages aren't locked with keys. They're built with guilt, obligation, and quiet threats. But no matter how long it takes, you can walk out. Just be ready for the silence after the door slams. If any of this feels familiar to you, I hope you'll share your story below. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you don't owe anyone your silence just because they share your blood. Thanks for listening to mine. If it stayed with you, I'd be grateful if you joined us here. There's space for your voice too.